Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. This is our seventh webinar. And in this webinar, I'm going to be presenting about something we've been working on. Actually, I gave a presentation about this at the Small Farm Conference here in Indiana. And it's a very nice setup that the HortCalculator, the tool that we've been promoting and working on and giving videos about, is useful for. So one of the things that we can use the HortCalculator for is to determine pricing strategies. And I'm going to get a little bit into it. If we have participants, we're going to answer questions if there are any questions. If not, we're just going to have a shorter video. And then you can access this video as well as the other video, and that's going to complement the things that you can use for determining prices. But one of the things that the Horror Calculator does is help you understand how do you determine prices. So let me go with the presentation. So the first thing is, why do we need to work on prices, right? Like if you're working really hard to produce excellent tomatoes, spinach, arugula, you need more, a little bit more than that to be profitable. And one of them is to have prices that reflect the quality of the products that you're producing. So pricing is really important because it basically gives you the idea of, are you making enough money to pay your bills, to pay your employees, to pay your expenses, and to have an income, right? You also want to get a fair value for your pricing, and you're going to get a fair value for the work that you've put on. And the fair value is going to include not only the expenses that you've incurred, but also are the characteristics of the produce that you have, and what are the practices that you've enabled. You want to have a business that is going to operate for a while. So part of having good prices is increasing revenues and having a profitable farm. For that to happen, you have to have prices that are fair, that allow you to invest in your farm and can help you make decisions. And ultimately, you're going to have peace of mind if your prices are fair. One of the things that prices are so important is because if you underprice, if you sell produce at the price that is lower, people are gonna believe that the quality of your product is not as good. It's going to devalue the quality of your product. If you overprice, if your prices are too high, you are going to drive customers away, because we're living in a time where a lot of people are price sensitive and they are not willing to pay a lot of money if their budget has important constraints. So
Ariana,
profitability 101 is to determine, yes.
can I just interrupt you before you go
Yeah.
further? Just to ask the audience to answer three very fast questions before you move on, please.
Yeah.
I'm gonna launch this poll. If you guys could respond, please. I don't know if you guys will be able, but can you try to respond, please? Okay, let me stop this poll. Okay, thank you, Ariana.
Yeah. So pricing, let's go back to pricing. So profitability 101 is understanding, are you making enough money? And money is part of the money that it comes at the end of your year. It comes from a very simple equation where profits, which is your net income, it's equal to the revenue, which are your sales. The sales come from the quantity that you've sold times the price that you're strategizing or you're applying to your products minus the cost. So to increase prices, you have to increase revenue. One of the things that you can really handle is your prices if you want to increase your profit. Your costs, sometimes you cannot handle costs because it is what it is. Fertilizer costs as much as it costs. The seeds are the prices that they have. You can probably be more productive. You have better seeds and better technology. But pricing is one of the things that you can actually control to increase your profitability. So the key question here is, your revenue consistently greater than your expenses? When the answer is yes, you have a profit from your business. So before you would get into prices, which is the thing that you're going to control, actually prices and costs are very interconnected. Your costs have, there are different ways to analyze your costs, but you have two types of costs. One is variable and one is fixed. And the Hort calculator, it's going to help you understand what is the price that you need to charge at the minimum level that you're going to cover your costs. That is called the break even price. And I'm going to get into it a little bit later. But before you set your prices, you need to understand how much am I spending, because costs are in the past, right? You bought seeds, 3 months later, you're harvesting, then you set prices, you irrigated, you hired people, etc. So costs are the things in the past that you can need to understand that is going to help you establish better pricing strategies. So if we're looking into the cost, we have fixed costs, which are the things that you're going to pay for regardless of the production. So let's say you buy a greenhouse and you have a loan. You have to pay for that loan regardless. You purchase a tractor, you are purchasing, I don't know, a fee at the farmer's market or any equipment that you may have. Those are things that are you have to pay at the end of the month or at the end of the year. And then your variable costs are things that value that are very much linked to your production. So the more seeds you buy, the more production you're going to have. Those are variable costs. So seeds, water, fertilizer, herbicides, any pesticide, any basket that you may have purchased is going to give a variable cost. And these vary with production. So again, if we're going to another formula, we have the price. It's very much linked to the total cost that you have spent for your product. And then you're going to add the profit margin. So I'm going to give you a couple of strategies and a couple of examples of how we determine prices using the Hort calculator. So let's say we have a case study using the HortCalculator of a farm that has 7,000 square feet on their high tunnel. Out of them, about 1,000 are planted with the spinach. And there is a planting range and an hour wage for labor. If the yield is 440 pounds and they're sold at a farmer's market about $10 per pound, then the HortCalculator needs all this information. It's going to need how much you spend on seeds, how much you spend, what are the equipments, if you have a high tunnel, how much did you pay for it, etc. So the Hort calculator is going to use a questionnaire format. Think about like TurboTax to ask you all the information to establish what are your costs. And then you can go ahead and decide, okay, I want to make 30% my profit margin. So that's going to be 30% of your costs. So after you enter these in the Hort calculator, this farm has 71% of overhead expenses. So these are things like benefit and fringes, crop insurance, internet, or secretarial, or any accountant or legal fees. Then you have labor costs, you have fixed costs and variable costs. So the Hort calculator is going to give you a breakdown of all the costs because it's going to help you understand what is the total cost for any specific crop that you've planted and what is the cost per square foot. Why per square foot? Because when we want to compare apples to apples, the square foot that is planted with X crop needs to be compared to another square foot planted with another crop to understand which one is actually more expensive and more profitable. The Hort calculator also goes ahead and gives you several reports, including profitability, sensitivity, and the most important one is break even. Within break even, we have two types of tables that you will receive after you enter all your information. One of them is the break even yield, which I'm not going to talk about, and basically is the minimum yield that you have to sell to cover all your costs. What I'm going to focus on right now, it's a break-even price. The break-even price is the minimum price and you need to charge per unit of production. In this case, per pound of spinach. So in this case, as you can see on the table, we have produced a pessimistic, a current, and an optimistic break-even price. And then we have yield on the X, and on the Y, we have, or vertically, we have the cost. So currently, this farm in blue has to charge at least $3.86 per pound of spinach to cover all your costs. And this is very important because if you make $4, you have 14 cents that goes strictly to your profitability. So that is the markup or the margin call or the margin profit that you want to add to. This break-even price is your threshold, it's your floor of the price. Now, the Hort calculator gives you different scenarios because what happens if You actually sold more. What happens if you harvested more? It was a good year. Or what happens if your costs increase or decrease? So this is a pessimistic, optimistic scenario. So in an optimistic, if your yield increases by 30% from 440 pounds to 572, and your cost decreases by 30%, which is a great scenario to be in, you actually can charge 208. Why is it important? Because when you go into the market, you may be thinking, well, I don't know how much I'm going to charge, but you know how much you have to at least charge. And this is your break even price. And this is a price that is going to be determined by all the data that you answered at the HortCalculator. So we using the break even price, then we decide what are the pricing strategies that we want to understand. So the first one is cost plus pricing. This is the most simple strategy. You probably are familiar with it. And it's basically calculating the break even price, total cost per pound, and add any markup, any profit margin, any money that you want to add to it. So, for example, if your markup is 50% and your break even price is $4, then you're adding $2 to that break even price. So you need to sell your veggies for $6 per pound. It is very simple, but you have to understand your cost. And that's how I started with we need to understand your cost. And that's why HortCalculator can really be helpful. The problem with this strategy, which is very commonly used, is that you're not taking into account competitors and what is the market willing to pay. So if you're selling to a market, a farmer's market that has high income in a high income neighborhood, consumers are maybe appreciating your organic practices, your heirloom tomatoes, your sustainability, how much you care about the environment. Therefore, you're maybe willing or able to charge a little bit more because the quality of your product is higher than any other competitor. So expressing strategies 2 and 3 are value strategy and in competition strategy. So this is what I call the triangle. The triangle is one corner is your break-even price, which is your costs, your competitor prices. You need to understand how much are your competitors charging for equally quality produce. And then what is the roof, which is how much your customers are willing to pay. If you have specialty varieties, if they're super fresh, the quality is superior, if you're having personalized service, your customers are going to value that more. And you're going to be able to go between the threshold, bottom threshold, which is the break even price, and the upper threshold, which is the consumer's value. And that's where you have this triangle. You got to fluctuate. Okay, depending on the market, you may go here or here. And that's where you want to understand your market pricing. But pricing is not just about the cost, as I mentioned before, but it starts with it. It has to be your first starting point, understanding how much I need to charge my product. You need to also account for profitability that you want to achieve, because this is an example of one crop. There are crops that are going to have higher markup because they're more unique or they're more demanded right now. Their products are not going to make as much money, and therefore, you need to be able to understand what is the break even price of each crop that you have. But let's say if you're having a seasonal, you have a high tunnel and your growth season is high, it's longer. So you're going to be able to bring produce that is not available in the market, that is locally produced in a sustainable manner. You may be able to charge more because your consumers are going to value more. Early season crops and crops that don't exist anymore are going to command higher price premiums. If your market is located in a higher income neighborhood, if your competitors are really not producing the quality as you have, then you may be able to charge more. And how unique and the quality, and you want to look into the competition. If you don't have a lot of competitors, you're probably going to be able to charge more. So the sweet balance is to understand this triangle. Again, break-even price, competitors, and what is the roof, what is the value that your consumers place. And one of the ways to address that is understanding and asking your consumers, what do you like about my produce? What would you like to see? So simply developing relationships with customers is going to tell you, am I actually underpricing or overpricing my products? And with that, I'm going to end this webinar. If we have any questions, we have 1 or 2 minutes to answer them. If not, you're going to be able to see this recording posted on YouTube in our channel. And we're going to have our next webinar. It's going to be number 8, and it's about the investments of high tunnels on your farm. How do you use a Horde calculator to determine is this high tunnel going to be profitable? What is the profits and what is the benefit cost analysis of that? With that, we're going to have a couple of questions if there are any. If not, thank you so much for watching the video, and we hope to see you next time.
Great, Ariana. Thanks for this great presentation. It was very well explained and very good for us to understand. Before everyone leave, I would like to present another poll, 3 questions pretty fast.
Yeah, let's do that.
Let me launch that. Everybody see the questions. I'll leave like 1 minute most. Okay, we got some questions, some answers. Thank you so much. Rihanna, I'll hand it back to you.
Well, if we don't have any questions, thank you everyone for attending, and we hope to see you on our next webinar, which is, Juliano, when is the next webinar?
Well, I need to figure out. We'll keep them posted. I'm gonna send the reminders and the invitation through their email.
Sounds good. Thank
All
you very
right.
much.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Have a great summer. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.